Senator Kroger.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President, and I rise tonight to express my frustration, I have to say, and dismay at how out of touch this Labor government is with the lives of all Victorians, not only Australians but in particular all Victorians as a Victorian senator. Mr Acting Deputy President, every day my electorate office is contacted by people who are fed up, expressing their concerns about increasing costs of living, and in particular they're increasing household bills, the reduction in health services in their areas, and the traffic congestion and increasing traffic congestion that they are dealing with. And they comment to me that their concerns, when they raise them with their local member, Anna Burke, the member for Chisholm, that those concerns seem to be falling on deaf ears. They sadly feel neglected, and so they rightly should feel that way. Just last week, only last week, after another week of broken promises from Labor, we were flooded with calls from families who are counting on receiving some $600 in family tax benefits, which they had been guaranteed would be a trade-off for the imposition of a carbon tax, which would in turn increase their cost of living and their household bills. Now, they won't receive this money because, as we have heard only tonight, with the handing down of the budget by Treasurer Wayne Swan, this government can't be trusted to keep its word, and it certainly can't be trusted to manage the Australian economy. No doubt many of these families, after hearing of today's lacklustre budget, will be calling my office again in the morning, further distressed at how poorly the government has been managing or mismanaging their hard-earned taxpayer dollar. My electorate office, Mr Acting Deputy President, is in Burwood East in Victoria, which is in the southeastern corridor of Melbourne. It is within the seat of Chisholm and is currently held by the Speaker in the House of Representatives, Ms Anna Burke. Only last Tuesday, Ms Burke and the Gillard government broke a promise to no fewer than 6,647 families in Chisholm. Families whom Anna Burke has written to in the past, promising that an increase to the family tax benefit Part A was on its way, and who were counting on her to honour her word so that they could plan their family budgets accordingly. Let me reiterate that 6,647 families who won't receive the helping hand they need because this government, this Labor government, doesn't know how to be fiscally responsible. That's 6,647 families who Ms Burke, the member for Chisholm, has left in the lurch because her government isn't interested in supporting families, small business, or may I say, it appears anybody else in the local community. We have heard, though, locally, what the Speaker, Ms Burke, is interested in and concerned in, and I can tell you quite frankly that it isn't measures that will improve the quality of life for her constituents. When the local paper recently asked the Speaker, Ms Burke, to nominate the number one local issue for residents, do you know what she said? Was it about cost of living? Was it about accessing hospital beds at Box Hill Hospital? No. She said the number one issue, the number one concern of people in Chisholm was, and I quote, ending the live export trade and animal cruelty. Well, I've got to say, I was pretty staggered when I saw that response given to the journalist of the local newspaper, because I can assure you, Mr. Acting Deputy President, that I have received a lot of correspondence and a lot of phone calls from many people, and some of those do express concern about perceived animal cruelty. But I can assure you that not one of them has suggested to me that it is the #1 core issue that is affecting their lives on a daily basis. Not one of them. It is not even in the top 10 in terms of the things that most impact their daily lives as they live in Chisholm and go about their daily lives. Their concern is about the cost of living. It is about balancing their family budget. It's about having access to appropriate and sufficient health services, and increasingly it's about the fact that they have to spend precious family time spent stuck on the Eastern Freeway. It is traffic congestion that is a huge problem in this area, instead of spending that time with their families at home. So what are these concerns to the Speaker, Ms Burke, may I ask? Granted, she did briefly mention cuts to health services to the local paper in an attempt to shift the blame for the cut in federal funding onto the state government, which we have seen time and time again, and it is a pattern of behaviour that we have evidenced across many portfolios. She even, I have to say, had the audacity to take out an advertisement congratulating herself. She paid for an ad in the local paper to congratulate herself for restoring a fraction of the money that her government cut from health services. But I have to say, on the roads issue and the traffic congestion issue on the Eastern Freeway, which is a huge issue in this area, and for those who may be listening to this who live in Chisholm, they understand what I'm talking about, because they live it every day, the commute to work and back, the commute to schools and back. They live it. They know what they're having to deal with. But in relation to this roads issue, she claimed in The Age only yesterday, that the East-West Link Road Tunnel, which has received huge backing from the state government and has been assured through recent funding announcements in the state budget only last week, she has actually suggested that funding for this East-West Link has not been raised with her electorate at all. Well, I have to ask, where have you been, Ms Burke? Where have you been that not one constituent has raised this as an issue and applauded the Liberal state government, the Napthine government, in determining that this is a #1 infrastructure issue for the state? She has said that no one has raised traffic congestion on Melbourne's Eastern Freeway. Well, all I can say is that she must have a head in the sand, because it was the Labor Brumby government that commissioned Sir Rod Eddington to look into infrastructure requirements for a long-term strategy for the state of Victoria. And it was Sir Rod Eddington in 2008 that brought down, who was commissioned for this inquiry, and who brought down a very, very commendable review that recommended that one of the key infrastructure projects that would put Victoria on the map and make it a far more productive state was the East-West Link, which runs and directly affects the electorate of Chisholm. So whilst the Speaker, Ms Anna Burke, has clearly had a head in the sand about this, I have to say that the local residents of Chisholm haven't. And the coalition, the federal coalition, has pledged $1.5 billion to help get this critical piece of road infrastructure built. This Labor government has refused to work with the Victorian state government on this east-west link, but clearly Ms Burke doesn't consider this to be a priority in the electorate, and she certainly has done nothing to advance the cause for her constituents in the area. She certainly has shown that she has no concern about the family struggling with household bills, or may I say the employees who work for over 600 manufacturing businesses in Chisholm, who are unsure, I have to say, about whether they'll have a job down the track, such as the lack of security in the manufacturing industry in the area. So I ask, what does she care about? Well, what has become very apparent is that she cares about distancing herself from unpopular policy decisions made by this Labor-Gillard government in an attempt to hold on to her seat. And she is blatantly using, and may I say shamelessly so, her role as a Speaker to do just that. Just this month she told the local paper
Senator
that
Kroger, I just ask you to withdraw your reflection on the Speaker of the other place.
I will take your advice on that.
Thank you, Senator Kroger.
Thank you. Just this month, she, in an interview to the newspaper, the Speaker, in an interview to the newspaper, and I quote, said she had grave concerns about the federal government slashing $2.8 billion from the tertiary sector. And then a week later, the same paper quoted her, and once again, I'm using her own quotes here. She was quoted as saying she was deeply uneasy with Labor's asylum seeker policies. But in the same interview, she was quick to point out that she was unable to take a stand in Parliament due to her impartial role as Speaker. Speaker Ms Burke claims she's not comfortable, and I think that this has been well and truly reflected on the record, public record. She has conducted interviews, and in fact I have been in such an interview with her where she has claimed that she's uncomfortable with mandatory detention of asylum seekers, a policy that stretches back to the 1990s and the Keating Labor government. And if she had a way, as she has said, she would release asylum seekers into the community and does not believe in the deterrence of offshore processing. She would like that to be disbanded. And in fact, I would like to point out that before she was Speaker, she voted for the Gillard government's dismantling of the Howard government's Pacific solution. I would like to note, though, for those that are affected by the fiscal irresponsibility of this government and the impact it's having on the delivery of services in areas such as Chisholm, that this is a failed policy which has already totalled $6.6 billion over the last 4 years in blowout costs, money that could have been very well directed into the east-west link, into health services in Chisholm and many other projects. It certainly could have gone a long way to eliminating the notorious Clayton Road level crossing that many local residents risk their lives at day in, day out, because it is a notorious point for accidents and is an area that needs to be prioritised. It also could have been directed to the construction of the new Monash Children's Hospital, something that there is huge demand for in the area. There has been a lot of business cases put forward for it, but it is certainly something that the government has not prioritised and is not something that they have supported. The attempts for the Speaker to attempt to distance herself by virtue of her position as Speaker between her and the deliberations and policy decisions of the Prime Minister, I have to say, are transparent and they are misleading. And that is because these policy decisions were taken before she was elected to the role of Speaker. It was the now Speaker, Ms Burke, who voted for the carbon tax. It's Ms Burke who voted for the dismantling of the Howard government's Pacific solution in dealing with border protection. Every single vote that has been taken in this parliament was undertaken by the government before she was in the role of Speaker. So to suggest that she has no role in the decisions that this Gillard ALP government have taken is just purely misleading. History will show this, and the record speaks for itself. She has supported all the decisions that have brought us to where we are today, and certainly has led to the type of budget that we have seen brought down tonight. Mr Acting Deputy President, the people of Chisholm, and indeed the people of Australia, deserve a lot better. I'm determined that they actually are delivered a lot better, and I demand all those who are seeking re-election at the next federal election on the 14th of September, including the Speaker, Ms Anna Burke, if she is one of those, to actually come clean with the Australian public and be honest for once in their lives.